Welcome to Conquering the Glass Ceiling, the show dedicated to helping women find their confidence and their worth and value. I'm your host, Dr. Cortney Baker, and I believe when women find their confidence and their worth and value, we will achieve gender equality. Conquering the Glass Ceiling will not only empower you, but will bring you key insights from successful and inspiring leaders. And in a moment, you and I will be joined by Kevin Bonfield, the creator of the Legacy Formula. And Kevin today is going to share with us what legacy is, the elements of the Legacy Formula, and the difference between potential and purpose, and how you can grow both. But first, a word from our sponsors, who don't know they're our sponsors yet. I am so excited to be with you right now and to share with you this afternoon with Kevin Bonfield, the creator of the Legacy Formula. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us. I am so excited to have you. Tell us about your background and how you got here.
Well, it was a long plane ride. So I grew up in the UK, as we've probably already worked out. I grew up in the north near Bolton, outside of Manchester, and started my career as a consultant and ended up swapping supposedly for 6 months. And that was back 21 years ago, and I never left Dallas. And so it's from there that my career developed in consulting and technology and more recently into writing.
Really? Okay, yeah. Tell me about that transition, because I think so many people have like the before life and the after, you know, like the consulting and then the writing.
Yeah.
So tell us about that transition.
So I still do consulting.
Okay.
And it's a big part of my life and what I do with my company. What I found was that there were concepts and thoughts that were coming up on a regular basis. They were triggering things in me, and I wanted to find a way to get them out to more people. And so the writing was a way of memorializing concepts and thoughts that I was having, and finding a way to communicate them with a broader audience. And that's where the Legacy Formula came from. It was the idea that rather than just thinking about these things, actually put it down on paper and see if it resonated with anybody.
Okay, so that goes perfectly into the next question. What is the Legacy Formula? So
the Legacy Formula is my view on the importance of legacy and how to think about how to think about leaving your legacy by design rather than default. Right. So there are 3 elements to legacy. So legacy equals purpose to the power of your habits multiplied by perceptions. And the reason that we have perceptions at the end is that we don't get to say what our legacy is. Other people get to tell the story of what we've done and not done. And so perception is a very big part of that. But the pieces that we control are what's our purpose, where are we going, and how do we go and live that purpose every day, which is our habits.
So it's interesting you bring that up, because when I have had conversations with women, especially women, but men too, I think so many, I mean, I'm in my 40s, and we get to a point where we go, what is my purpose? Yep. So tell me about like that journey and how you would even answer that.
Yeah. So I think that's a fairly common thing. I mean, I went through the same thing trying to work out what I wanted to do, and I think it kind of funnels over time, right? So I started off my career as a consultant, and then I went and worked for EDS, which is obviously a big company here in town, and I felt like I was going down a path, but it wasn't necessarily the thing that was most exciting to me, right?
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I had fun at times. There were definitely jobs and roles that I had that were more exciting than others, but I didn't have a way of thinking about why it was that was good and that wasn't. And so I spent more time thinking about it over the last couple of years, basically because I wanted to do more of the stuff that was aligned with where I wanted to go and less of the stuff that wasn't. And so mine, as I've spent more time thinking about it, is that I want to help people define and achieve their legacy. And the reason is that I think if we collectively do that, then there's going to be more significance that we leave in the world once we're done. And so the significance piece of it is huge for me.
That's awesome. And I love that because, so how do you help people determine their purpose? I mean, if I came to you and said, Kevin, I really don't know. I'm struggling with my purpose.
Yeah.
What would you say to them?
Well, to me, this is very closely aligned with a concept in Strategic Coach called unique ability, which is what do you love to do and what are you excellent at? And so it's the things that give you energy and passion and drive. And that would be the starting point that I would ask you about. What are the things that make you excited to get up in the morning? And what are the things that don't? And we could start to, I think, bifurcate the kinds of areas that we're going to go and investigate that probably has your purpose buried in there versus the stuff that's just extraneous to life.
So tell us more about your journey with that.
So I started off about a year ago when I was on one of my EO retreats. So within the Entrepreneurs Organization, we have forum, as you know, and my forum went away for our retreat. And one of the things that we did was write our own obituary, which is a pretty heavy task. Now, I've always wanted to. It's always been on my list of things to do, mostly because I don't think people are going to write it the way that I would write it.
Right.
I'd like to have some of that in there, and you know, obviously to me, I suppose there's a mix of humor and other things in there. Yeah. So that was the starting point for me, writing that, and then having a sense of what was in there and what wasn't in there, because we gave ourselves 15-20 minutes to write it, and so as a necessary step, there's only a certain amount of things that you get in there just because you don't have time.
Right.
And I found that the helping others piece was very big to me as I wrote that out, and the way that I leave something through the company that I have and the people that I work with and my clients and my kids, not necessarily in that order. Those are the things that are important to me. It's not the it's not the tangible things. It's the experience and the fact that I can look back and I can say I had an impact here, and that was my starting point. The second phase that I went through is actually putting it down on paper. And so the way that I write it is my purpose is to help people define and achieve their legacy. And then the so that is really important, right?
Tell us more about that.
And the so that is so that we can have lives of increasing purpose and significance. And that significance piece of it to me is the thing that kind of brings it together, because if I can help you work out what your legacy should be and I can help you go down that path, then you're going to have an impact not just in your life but on a bunch of other people as well.
Yeah, I mean, and it's similar to the ripple effect, right?
It is, yeah.
Okay. And when I speak, I do a similar exercise that I actually did when I was in orientation for my doctorate program, and we had to write our 80th birthday toast.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so when I speak, I do that exercise, and I've had so many people come up to me afterwards just telling me how much that changed their perspective of what do you want others to say about you at your birthday, at your 80th birthday, and how you have changed their life. And I think we go, and specifically in my research, I've talked with so many women about how we go through what I call the dailies, you know, like the laundry, the grocery shopping, and without really thinking every thought, every choice, every word, and every action, we're creating our legacy.
Right. Right. It happens. It happens in every interaction. And one of the things that we tend not to do is we tend not to tell people when they've had that impact on us. Right. So we wait until the 80th birthday. I mean, the great thing is if you reach your 80th birthday and somebody's giving you that toast, then you get to hear it. Mm-hmm. I mean, some of the nicest words you will ever hear are at your funeral, where you actually don't get to hear what people are saying. So one of the things that I've tried to do more and more over the last year is to tell people when they've had an impact on me.
Yeah.
Right. Because it happens all the time, and yet we don't hear about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've had an impact on people, and it's not just the people who listen to this show or when you interact with them. You're having an impact on people beyond that because you've inspired somebody, or you've given them an idea, or you've provided a set of values that then they go and live. So it's not just I don't just have my legacy through the people I touch. My legacy is really the people I never meet.
Oh, I love that. And how will you ever know
exactly
what that is?
Exactly. So one of the best, one of the most inspiring stories I think for me was started off with a blog that I wrote probably 2-3 years ago. So we were away for our Christmas holiday, and we're staying in Malibu on a cliff overlooking the ocean. And this is in late December, January. So the cool thing is, from where we're staying, we can watch the sun come up each morning.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Malibu's a hard place to have to be.
It's tough,
yeah.
right?
I mean, I got my doctorate there, so at Pepperdine. So
there
yeah,
you go.
I had to do it. I mean, it was a hard time. Keep me in your prayers. Anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So my two girls, Sydney and Lola, said, well, we want to come and watch it as well. And so we would get up and I think we were there 4 mornings, and they came and did this 3 times. We got up and we sat outside, and it was cold. So we got blankets and we kind of huddled up together. And we watched the sun come up each day. And I wrote about that. I wrote about that experience of, you don't have enough time in the day, and the idea is that if you can stack activities, then you achieve more every day, right? So I really wanted to watch the sunrise. I wanted to spend time with my kids. We're going to do both of those things together.
Stacking
right?
activity.
Stacking
I
activities.
love that
Right.
concept.
So so I wrote this blog on stacking activities. Didn't think much else of it. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love the blog. I thought that it was interesting, but I didn't think much of it until about 9 months ago, when I bumped into somebody as I was walking. I was walking down a hall. Somebody I barely knew, and he stopped me. He said, "Oh, by the way, I just wanted to let you know that blog that you wrote on stacking activities and watching the sunrise." He said, "That's changed. That's changed some of the things that I do with my kids, and I spend my time with my kids differently now as a result of that blog."
Wow.
Right. So I've never met his kids. We'll likely never meet his kids, right? But that to me that's one of the things that legacy brings, is that you are having an impact through your ideas or your inspiration. You're having an impact on other people.
And we are, whether it be positive or negative.
Right.
And actually, I remember when I was married the first time, and my husband, I was a young mom, and I was just, I was 19 when I had my son, and I was just really mad about something. And Matt, my first husband, said, "Cortney, do you realize this is how people are going to see you if you continue on that path, as angry all the time? And I know you don't want to be that kind of mom. So think about that." And I really did. And that made an impact on my thought process of, wow, I don't want to be seen as the mom who's always screaming, or the mom who's always, angry about something. And so that really changed that dynamic for me.
Right.
And I feel like that changed also the relationship between me and my children. And don't get me wrong, I mean, I've got teenagers and a preteen right now, so I try my best. But it's like it really made me aware
Yes.
of, and I think that's what you're talking about, the awareness that comes with your thoughts and your choices and your words and your actions.
Right. And so we're going to have to talk later because my 9-year-old, I think, is almost a pre-tween right now.
Oh.
She's going through that.
Yes.
Yeah. And on one side, I've got Sydney, and she's really cute and fun to hang out with. Sydney.
She's 7.
No, she's 9. She's 9.
Okay.
But then her personality will change, and you can tell that she's going down that path. So.
Yeah, I know.
It's tough.
It is tough because they're trying to figure themselves out, and you're trying to allow them, but also keep your sanity. Yeah.
Well, and I think you're also. I tend to believe that by this time they've gotten a lot of your learning and your wisdom and whatever it is that they've seen from you that they've picked up. So I'm just hoping that we've done a good enough job up until now, and they're going to go down a path.
You stacked your learning,
right?
Yeah,
right,
exactly.
But one of the things you talked about there, that what's the relationship like with you and your kids? One of the things that I tried to break down when I wrote the ebook was. Legacy is a very big word, right? It has a lot of weight to it, and one of the things that we tend not to do is we tend not to think about it because it comes at the end of your life. And I've certainly had people who've told me, "Well, I don't care. I'm not going to be around anymore. I don't care what people say about me."
Wow.
Right? But the breakdown for me is that you have. There's a difference between big L legacy in my mind and little L legacy. And little L legacy is you leave a legacy in every role that you have. So I have a legacy as a father. I have a legacy as a son, as a husband, as a business owner, as whatever it is, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to keep them aligned to my overall purpose because otherwise it doesn't work particularly well. But the piece for me is that you have each of those roles that you play, and what do you want your kids to say about you on the other side of you raising them, right? What are the things that they take from your parenting that they then do themselves, and what do they decide, absolutely, I'm not going to do that? I mean, I know that I did that with my parents, right? I said, these are the things that I love about what you do, and I'm going to bring that to bear with my parenting style, and then there are some things that quite frankly, no, I'm going to go in the exact opposite direction.
Mm-hmm. I think that's with everybody, the good and the bad, but just using that as your learning. But I love, and I want to get back to the fact that you were intentional about making memories with your children. There's something magical about sunsets and sunrises.
There are, aren't there?
Yes, and just choosing, like every minute of the day can't be about, I'm going to make this a legacy moment, but really it's making memories with your kids. And I'm trying to get away from memories through stuff because if you think about it, like how many of us remember or our children remember what we gave them for Christmas a year ago? But if it was a memory, and someone who used to work for me actually did this, she said, I give my children every other birthday, I try to go on an experience with them. And whether that be, a trip to Austin or, somewhere big for like a 13th birthday or something. Right. But they remember those times together, but they don't remember the stuff.
They don't. I mean, they really don't. We do the same with our kids. And so one of the cool things last year was that they told my wife and I, we were starting to plan their birthday party, and they have their birthdays are 10 days apart, and so they tend to have one together and bring all their friends together. And they told us
You're stacking memories.
I'm stacking birthday parties now as well, which is even better. One cake,
brilliant.
One cake,
yes.
But they had friends of theirs who'd recently moved out to California, and they came to us and they said, we don't want a birthday party. What we want to do is we want to go and spend the weekend in California with our friends because that's more important to us than having a birthday party. And that, look, I mean, for me, I got a weekend away as well. It was fantastic. But we still talk about how cool that weekend was, whereas I can tell you that however awesome that birthday party was, we would not be talking about it right now.
Right, because they wouldn't even remember it, probably. Or just, they'd remember bits and pieces, but they'll carry that memory for life. I mean, I still remember being in a RV or whatever they were called and driving all throughout the country with my parents. It felt all throughout the country, but we drove from Dallas to Arizona, the Grand Canyon and Disneyland.
Yeah.
And I don't even remember how old I was, but I remember being in the car with my sister and my stepbrother and this other family that we traveled with. And, those are the things that I can still talk to my kids. And so that is the legacy that my parents have for me.
Right.
And but you're right. It's those memories, and whether we want to think about it or not, we're creating that.
Well, and that's my point. You are leaving a legacy. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter whether you want to or not. You are. The question is whether you want it to be something that's by design or by default, or if you want to have an impact on that. And that's why purpose is important, because it starts to give you direction.
Mm-hmm. So when you were going through that transition, did you have a difficult transition into the purpose for yourself?
I think the thing that I realized as I was going through it, and bear in mind this is a journey, not an endpoint, a destination, right? So in my mind, while I've written it down and I've sent it to people who are closest to me to get feedback and input. And
this is your obituary?
No, not the obituary. This is my purpose. So I've got one page which says, my purpose is to help people define and achieve their legacy so that we achieve lives of increasing purpose and significance. And then there's a couple of paragraphs underneath it which kind of describe it. Mm-hmm. The first time I wrote it, there were things in there that when I sent it out to friends, they're like, "No, that's not you." And they were right. There were bits in there that weren't great descriptions. The core of it absolutely was right, but there were bits of it that weren't. But it was helpful then to get that feedback and hone it. I think mine is 95% there, but I don't think it's – I think I need to kind of try it on like a coat for a while and see how it fits. And but what I have found is that by being clear on that purpose, I can see the things in my life that – are less important to me that I need to start to move to one side. So there's I was chair of the board for my kids' old school, and I've been on the board for 6-7 years. It's a fantastic school. I love the school. It's done great things for not just my kids but hundreds of families. But what I realized was that it wasn't core to the things that I wanted to get done. It wasn't core to the purpose that I had, and it was a great way of giving back, but it wasn't the thing that I wanted to do. And so it got to the point of it was time for me to roll off and give that seat to somebody else who had more of a passion and a drive for making that role what it could be. But that was a helpful filtering mechanism for me to say, yes, I can see where I want to go, and it's now time to say thank you and move on in this particular part of my life. Right,
because then now you have a filter which you can make decisions.
Yes.
And so how do you share your passion with others through your work, your book?
So the book is a starting point, basically to get people to think about what it is that they want to leave behind, and it works either on an individual level and us having the conversation here, or it works when I talked about the role legacy piece. When we work with consulting clients, and we'll work with CIOs, chief information officers, and CFOs, chief financial officers of major companies, but they're looking typically to leave a legacy, to leave a mark once they're done. And so it's a helpful way of saying, okay, let's look out 3 years. If we were to write the email that back to the toast, right? Back to the 80-year-old toast. If we were to write the email that is written when you move on to your next role, what do you want it to say? Right, and because there's always an email, right? There's always an email if you're a leader of a major company. There's always an email when you move on. What do you want it to say? Do you want it to say hard driving and did these 3 things and is now moving on, or do you want it to be they mentored people and they created the next generation of leaders for this company? I mean, because the work that you do on a day-to-day basis is going to be different depending on what you want that email to say.
And is that something that's in the ebook?
It is, yes.
Okay.
It is. So there's a tool in there that we call the Legacy Illuminator. You've got to have a name for everything, right?
Yes.
And the Legacy Illuminator takes you through what you want your role legacy to be. So it goes through 3 stages. It talks about what do you bring to the role that you're going to play? What's the context of it? So there's always something that's there to begin with. The role was there before you, and it's going to be there after you. There's baggage or context that comes with that. Then write the email is phase 2. And then phase 3 is, okay, what does that mean? What are the 3 projects I have to get done? And what are the ongoing habits that I need to have to make those things a reality? So if I want to be known for creating that next generation of leaders, then that doesn't happen overnight. That's something that I need to be thinking about and dealing with every day for the next 3 years, so that people say, yes, that was Kevin's purpose. He put it into practice and he achieved it.
So are you doing more in your work as an author, or are you doing more in your work with your primary business?
Still primarily on the consulting side. What I got from thinking through my purpose was, how do I take the things that I'm doing and apply them in different ways, right? So the legacy formula is something that you can read, and it might be something that you download and go through the tool and go, oh, that's really helpful. Thank you. That's given me context for making a difficult decision. So I spoke about a month ago, and one of the people who was there, she was saying, my kids are getting to a point where they're leaving the house, and I've been raising them for the last 18 years, and I'm going through a transition, and I needed a way to think about what it is that I wanted to do next. So it could be that, right? It could be a thought starter there. We're starting to do workshops on legacy formula.
I love it.
And then we'll use it as a tool within the consulting, basically as a way to say, how do you want to end up, and how do we then reverse engineer what it is that you're going to achieve over the next 3 years? What's your roadmap for how you go and achieve that outcome?
I love it. And actually, it's interesting because we go through these transitions so many times in life. Yep. I know for me personally, I went through it when in 2012, I had transitioned out of my daily operations at my company. And so I went back to school, and then, finished my comprehensive exams, and then came the dreaded dissertation, and I did the dissertation. So check. And then I wrote the book, Unlimited, Conquering the Myth of the Glass Ceiling, check. And then it was like crickets.
Yeah. Now
what? So I can very much understand that, once you raise your kids and there's, you're looming towards an empty house, and it's like, oh, what's my purpose? And for me, it was really going internally, and kind of what sounds like the book is really makes you stop and think about what is it that I want to leave? What's my legacy? What's my, this is an integral part of life, that transition and that turning point. Yeah. So what's next? What are next steps with thought and purpose?
And think about it this way. You mentioned early on about the difference between potential and purpose, right? Potential is, think about it this way. It's a light where everything comes out in equal proportion everywhere, right? You could direct your potential whichever way you want to, but the potential is basically the core of who you are and the skills that you have and the expertise and the learning, right? Purpose is, how do I then direct it? So it's the difference between a light bulb and a laser.
Okay.
Right?
Perfect.
But the cool thing in your story is you went through all of those steps. You were increasing your potential, right? You were getting the skills and the expertise to have a greater impact on the world, so that when you took that light and directed it, you could have greater significance and impact with what you do.
Well, thank you.
There you go.
Thank you. Wow. Kevin said so.
Well, it's true.
Well, thank you. Because, I like to think that, now that I know exactly what my purpose is to help empower and inspire women to see their confidence. Because so many women in my research talked about, it was nearly 80% of the women that I talked about how they lacked confidence.
Wow.
And I feel like we walk through our lives without thinking about what am I, what is my legacy I'm leaving? And so this is a perfect discussion about knowing when you determine what your legacy is and what your purpose is, then you can walk confidently in that. Right. In fact, I have a theory that confidence is found at the intersection of courage to know your purpose,
Right.
and faith to walk in it.
Right.
And that is where you'll find confidence. Kevin, thank you so much for being here with me
Thank
today.
you.
This has been a fabulous discussion. And if people want to know more about you or get your, Kevin has graciously extended us the ability to get the free ebook of the Legacy Formula. So tell us how to do that.
So if you go to legacy-formula.com, you'll see the website there, and at the bottom of the website you can click on the link that says Get ebook, and we will send that to you.
Great. And how can they get in touch with you if they want to know more information?
Similar email, so kevin@legacy-formula.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Kevin. And if you guys have any questions for Kevin, send them to him. He'd love to help you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you. Okay, guys, we will be back in just a second. Hey guys, it's Courtney. We're outside of PF Chang's at the North Park Mall, and I am with Tiffany, and she's going to tell me about the best boss you've ever had.
The best boss I ever had. She was very direct, very honest, energetic, but she was an amazing expert, and she was all about making me the best at what I did, and very encouraging. And so,
Wonderful.
yes.
Wonderful. And where were you? Oh, wait, you told me not to ask you that.
No. I was in Denton County.
Okay.
It was a nonprofit that actually worked to save women and children's lives from abuse.
I love it. Thank you so much, Tiffany. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Hang on. Okay, Tiffany gave us a lot of nuggets, but overall, she shared with us that the best leader that she ever had inspired her to be her best. And one of the things she said was gave her a lot of feedback. And specifically in my research, I have found that women get a lot less direct feedback. So, like, let's say someone says, "Hey, you did a great job in that meeting." What does that mean? Did you like that I presented my information well? Did you like that I knew my statistics? You know, so if you are in a position of leadership, one of the things that Tiffany and I would encourage you to do is give direct feedback to your employees so that they know what they can do even better. Guys, thank you so much for joining me this week. I have had the best time with Kevin, and I know you have too. That's it for today. So for more information or to book me to speak, you can contact me at Courtney@CourtneyBaker.com, or you can download my strategy guide to conquer the glass ceiling at CourtneyBaker.com. I'll see you next week.